Retro Hangover is supported via Patreon by listeners like you. We would especially like to thank patrons Lyle McCarnes, Randall Quiggle, Tony G, Studstill Smash the Milkman, Keith Gasper, Raging Demon, Mast Keaton, Dischimera, Ozzy Garcia, JC, Megan Caruso, Andrew Liguori, Lunchbox, aka The Disgruntled Gamer, Adam from The Good, the Bad, and the Backlog, Rick Firestone, Dave Jackson, Jenny E, Retro Overdrive, Soha, Parallax Puddles, The Emperor, Storm Beagle, Matt, aka Stormageddon, B. Ross and Van Fernal from Super Garbage Day, Gary Heather, the Retro Vixen, Eric Guess, Nomad from the Retro Wildlands podcast, Ash Event, Alan Bingham, Mike the Rep from Backbreaker Gaming, Ryan Player One, Low 5 Alex, Alt, Redder Dreaming, and Ohmi. Your continued engagement and generous donations are deeply appreciated.
Open your ears and crack some beers. You are listening to the most recent episode of Retro Hangover.
And hello, retro and classic gamers. Welcome to the podcast where we send soul sailing, scouring sacred swords and scenery. This is Retro Hangover. I am your co-host, Chris Copleen, with special guest, game development veteran and 3D artist, Kiyoshi Okuma, and, as always, your host, Shane. Soul Edging Dick Dragon Salter.
You know, if you soul edge long enough, then a bright column of light will burst forth and produce the evil seed. Did you know that, Chris?
Is Sophidia there?
God, I hope so.
Me too. Even though I don't know many Greek women that are blonde-haired and blue-eyed.
Yeah,
There's some historical inaccuracy there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm sure they had hair dye there. Did cut contacts? I don't know, man. What? I can't defend it. It was a different time.
Maybe she was kidnapped from Norway.
Yeah, there we go. She was an adopted Greek divine warrior.
Sure.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. With different colored panties in Japan. Anyway, welcome to the stage of history. Put that in there, Ashton. Like, bring in that. Yes, do it. We were talking about this pre-show. Welcome to the stage of history. We're going to be talking about a Dreamcast game as part of Dreamcast month. Last episode, we talked about the Dreamcast, obviously. And we're going to be doing that all throughout September. And today is going to be Soulcalibur. And I am happy to bring on a member of our community. I had a little birdie once tell me that this was a big time fighting game for them. So I just welcome back to the show. Last time they were on was with Gauntlet Legends, but welcome back. Ohmi. Oh, I was about to say Ohmi. We don't know who Ohmi is. Kiyoshi Okuma.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me back. And yes, I am a humongous fan of Soulcalibur.
I'm kind of nervous about how you're going to come out at the end of this episode. With that being said, I don't know if you're going to say whether or not it holds up, but we got to keep the audience in suspense with that information.
Okay, yeah.
We're all nervous now. I don't know what's going to happen.
Edge your seat, right?
Yeah, edging the seat. We're going to keep this
edging of your seat.
Keep that going as long as possible. Shane, you still edging over there?
Yeah. Wouldn't you like to know?
Before we get into the game du jour, we want to do is talk about the games that we have been playing. And as tradition states, we let our guest go first. So, Kiyoshi, what game have you been playing lately? Or games?
Actually, not that much on like oddly. I've been playing, well, I guess this was a little while ago, but I've been playing Sandland, which is that Akira Toriyama style game with a little pink demon and he drives a tank and like mecha and stuff like that. And you have to build a town out in the desert. I thought it was pretty good. It's actually a little too easy for me. Like I play it and I'm getting a little bored with it. Kind of a little repetitive, but overall I'd say it's actually a pretty good game though still. It's got a lot of fun stuff in it. Not as much comedy as I thought it would have. It has some, and it was pretty good. And I guess, of course, I've been playing some Soulcalibur just for this episode to refresh my memory. Had a really good time with that. My Dreamcast, my VGA monitor. It's like, oh, yes.
Yeah, the VGA. We'll get into that. I think that is an amazing thing for the Dreamcast, and oh, it's so gorgeous. But getting back to, is it Sandland or Sandman?
Sandland.
Sandland. I've heard a lot of mixed things about that game. I've heard people that liked it. I've heard people that don't like it. It sounds like you're more in the don't like it camp, but mostly because of the difficulty.
Well, I don't not like it. I thought it was pretty good.
Okay.
It's just, it's a bit casual, I guess, and there's no settings for that, right? So it's like I get into battles, they're very easy. I wish I had harder battles, I guess. If you fight some of the super bosses, they can defeat you pretty quickly, but that's you're just supposed to come back when you're more powerful. It's just sort of like a, on-off switch, right?
That's going to be my question for you. Do you think that's going to be Toriyama's last game, or you think that's he did enough for Dragon Quest 12 for that to be his last one?
Oh, I'm assuming 12 will be his last one, like that he was involved in personally.
Okay.
I mean, because they've been working on 12, so I have to assume he did, a lot of work on that, but I'm not 100% positive how much work he did on it because, of course, we don't know what stage of production it was in. Yeah.
Yeah. We got a title screen. Like, hey, it's coming. Well, yeah, no shit. Thanks.
And I mean, Sandland, you could say he worked on Sandland, but he probably just checked a box because it's based on a manga he drew. So
yeah.
And that was already done before they started working on it. So I don't know how much he did for that. He might have done some illustrations or something.
He informed his team on what to do.
Right.
Don't make me look bad. Shane, how about yourself?
I was thinking about it. I was trying to remember what I've even been doing lately. Similar to our esteemed guest here, I don't really think I've been playing all that much, but if you happened to join us on our Sunday streams lately, you may have caught me playing a bit of a demo of a game called Vane, which is a first/third person open world zombie survival type of jam. We had a pretty good time with it. It's always interesting to see kind of what emergent gameplay comes out of those sort of sandboxy games like that. And as it turns out, evidently in the zombie apocalypse, I have a penchant for running over wildlife with cars, mostly accidentally. So there's that. But, maybe don't take a Ford Pinto and try to ram it into a whole bunch of zombies because it might not turn out very well for you. But that's been interesting. Probably like to put a little bit more time into it. I'm curious to see where it goes because it's being developed by a 2-man team, and what they've done so far, honestly, is pretty impressive. So probably keep some tabs on that one. And then let's see. Other than that, honestly, just more Diablo 4. I cranked through this season, so I'm actually done with all of the seasonal stuff this time around. So now I'm actually getting a chance to go around and finish up all of the just baseline exploratory stuff that I never really got a chance to do. So going and collecting up all of the statues of Lilith to get the bonus stats and all that good stuff. I'm basically trying to get myself baselined for the expansion, which comes out in October, I believe. So I'm looking forward to that. That seems to be shaping up pretty good. Yeah, that's kind of it for me now. What about you, Chris? What you got going on?
Oh man, remember I think I said a couple weeks ago I was studying for a financial industry test.
Yes.
And that's really taken up all my time in terms of gameplay and also job searching and just kind of putting in applications to see what's out there and see if, any fish will bite, just because always trying to keep my options open. Well, the good news out of all that so far is I passed my security industries essentials test.
Heck
so
yeah.
that studying has paid off. Yeah. And now my reward for that is, thank you. My reward for that is more studying and another test. So that will That will resume tomorrow. In terms of games, I haven't really played a ton in terms of discretionary gameplay. So yeah, I've played some Soulcalibur. I played a lot of Soulcalibur, and I can't wait to talk about that. But while playing Soulcalibur, I decided to look into some Dreamcast games and found myself, because I have a mode and I can play whatever the hell I want to, and I actually found myself pretty disappointed in the games that I played, and I was like surprised. So I played a little bit of Fighting Vipers 2, and I was like, it's not as good as the first one. And the first one's a lot of fun, but still kind of like a B tier fighting game. It's not like among the best, but I think it's a lot of fun. And it's like, oh, okay, it's a game. I mean, it's playable and it looks okay.
How does it compare to Fighters Megamix?
Oh, far worse. Far worse. Okay. Fighters Megamix is a masterpiece. I love Fighters Megamix.
Yeah, it's pretty good. That one.
Yeah,
it's up there.
And then I played a little bit of Cannon Spike, and I was like, this is the super expensive game for the Dreamcast. This is what everyone wants. Okay, it's like really boring. Now, granted, I played it on the easiest difficulty, but like it didn't really get anything going in me whatsoever to try it on a harder difficulty. It's very hard to explain. I did a run through with Cammy on it. I was like, it's weird. It's a very weird game. But one game I did put a little bit of time into and enjoyed a little bit was a game called Fairy Fencer F Advent Dark Force for the Nintendo Switch. Yeah.
That's a title.
That's a way to describe it. Well, it was originally just called Fairy Fencer F. And so it was for the PlayStation 3, and then they ported it over at least to the Switch. I don't know if they've ported it over elsewhere. I would imagine PS4 has one as well.
Yeah, I have it on PS4.
Yeah. It probably looks a lot better because it chugs on the Switch for some reason. A PS3 game chugging on the Switch.
Well, I mean, that's a lazy port job, probably. Yeah.
From Idea Factory, you don't say. I would
never.
No, not at all.
They would never do that.
Never.
They're a factory of ideas, Chris, not efficiency.
Idea Factory and Compile Heart.
The dream team.
The dream team. I'll say this, like the game itself, like is just kind of ho-hum. Especially, I don't know if it's because I have the physical cart, but it gave me all this DLC that essentially is game breaking. I didn't buy it. It's just like, okay, like here's all this DLC for you to do. I'm like, oh, it has an armor. What happens if I equip it? I take no damage. Oh, okay. Not going to take that off. What's that? Yeah, I don't take any damage. Yeah. Like I can either do the one that protects against magic damage or the one with physical damage, but I'm taking no damage right now. And just because apparently I have the physical cart. So I'm like, oh, okay. Like whatever.
That must be a Switch thing because I didn't see that on the PS4.
Yeah, I don't know what triggered it. I have no idea. Just like all these notifications just start popping off once I like started playing it. But the dialogue in that game, it's like it feels like a working designs game. It's just ridiculously stupid. It's funny, and that's probably the best part of the game so far is the dialogue. Like the dialogue is just so unserious, and I love it. Character designs by Yoshitaka Amano. Why didn't I know that? Because I was about to say Akira Toriyama. That's why, because it was already mentioned. Damn it. But it was character designs are by Yoshitaka Amano, and there is art from Yoshitaka Amano in there. And music is actually also by another Final Fantasy contributor. So I guess all the Fs make sense, which is Nobuo Uematsu. And he's doing music with the Earthbound Papas. And that's who wrote the score. So yeah, I mean, good music. Mediocre gameplay. It chugs with hilarious dialogue. So I'm actually looking forward to playing more of that, which makes me sad because I wish I felt the same way about Eiyuden Chronicles right now because I haven't touched that game in forever. And I probably should get back to that at some point. I don't know. It's just, I should like both. Probably just because I just haven't been budgeting my time and I'm super stressed with these financial exams. But that's what I got, Shane.
Well, okay. That was... I'm gonna be honest, that was like oddly directed. You caught me off guard there for a second, just throwing my name at the end. All right, Jesus,
I'm trying to toss it back to you.
Yeah,
I don't know who's reading the brief history.
Well,
that's why
sure
it's so
as
direct.
Fuck isn't me. So hey, you know what?
Oh.
We got a game. You don't want me to do it, so we got a game that we're talking about today. that apparently has to do with some manner of caliber. Guns are not involved much, really, so I'm not sure. Maybe it's a measure of a man. No, we already talked about that in a previous episode. So I don't know what it is, but there's a sword and a pirate, and that's some cool shit. So Chris, how about you tell all of the fine people at home a bit of the brief history of Soulcalibur?
System sellers, a phrase that is used to describe games that are meant to get the general public to run out and buy a console for the opportunity to get their hands on that experience. Every hardware developer is desperate to have one to hold up and point to for success and longevity in the market. Sega thought the title that would be that for Dreamcast would be their first-party effort after hiatus in Sonic Adventure, which is partially correct. However, there was another title that seemingly came out of nowhere that quickly became the reason for many to see what the next generation would have in store. That game was Soulcalibur. After release of Soul Edge, also known as Soul Blade in the United States, the first game in the Soulcalibur series, Namco did something unusual for a moderately successful fighting game at the time. They paused and evaluated its successes and shortfallings before committing to developing a sequel. Producer Hiroaki Yotoriyama decided that instead of simply making a sequel, they would instead take the approach of completely rebooting the ideas and concepts that had previously been used. He would go so far as to change the name from Soul Edge to a portmanteau of the words Soul and Excalibur, Soulcalibur. In terms of game direction, Project Soul, the development team at Namco in charge of making the game, would implement 8-directional movement for his characters after finding how well it worked with the gameplay style. They would also work closely with the Tekken team throughout development, which gave Project Soul a ton of confidence towards the quality of the product they were creating. January of 1998, the game was first announced as New Weapon Fighting Game, with a playable version being available at that year's E3. This was still when the game was on Namco's System 12 hardware, a souped-up version of the board closely aligned with Sony's PlayStation, which would serve as the platform for the official arcade release. Namco released Soulcalibur to the arcades in Japan on July 30th, 1998. However, the home port would not be going to Sony's PlayStation, as all of Namco's System 11 and 12 conversions had been up to that point. Instead, it would be arriving on Sega's brand new Dreamcast, with the focus of being delivered for the console's North American launch. The change of hardware gave Project Soul a unique opportunity that had been something that had been a stated goal of gaming for over 25 years: to make the home experience not only the exact same as the arcade, but better. This wasn't completely novel for Namco given how many different modes they had packed into Tekken 3 just the year prior, something that arcades just weren't optimal for or really capable of. But Soulcalibur, in addition to different game modes and additional characters, would find itself being graphically superior to the arcade offering. Character models were improved, as well as making every stage fully rendered in 3D polygons instead of the flat 2D images for the arcade. In essence, the Dreamcast home port would make the arcade release completely insignificant. The home port would find its way to Japan on August 5th, 1999, with North America and Europe seeing it on their region's Dreamcast launch dates of September 9th and November 26th, respectively. Critical reception for the game was universally and overwhelmingly positive. Ratings from publications were so positive that, according to Metacritic, the game is at a 98 in aggregate, the second highest rated game ever released, only behind The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, which sits at a 99. It received then-coveted perfect scores from Electronic Gaming Monthly, Famitsu, GameSpot, and IGN, as well as garnering multiple Game of the Year awards. In terms of sales, it would sell approximately 1.3 million units for the Dreamcast. While that may not sound like a whole lot, Keep in mind, the Dreamcast sold less than 10 million units worldwide, giving it an attach rate of almost 1 to 8. It was also the second best overall selling game on the system, only behind the heavily marketed Sonic Adventure. Soulcalibur, despite not receiving the same market muscle, quickly became the premier example of why you should own a Dreamcast for many gamers in late 1999, despite the looming shadow of the PS2 and, for many fighting game fans, Tekken Tag Tournament. Since then, Soulcalibur has continued to be regarded as one of the best fighting games ever made, regularly showing up on best of lists. It also spawned more sequels that would find their ways to other consoles with memorable gimmicks, such as including Link or Spawn in Soulcalibur 2, and Darth Vader or Yoda showing up in Soulcalibur 4. Its most recent entry in the series was Soulcalibur 6 in 2018, but since that game's release, Namco has all but said that the series has met its end. The original has also found its way onto the Xbox 360 in 2008 and to mobile devices in 2012. And that is your brief history of Soulcalibur.
I'm going to be honest, I have no idea how anybody could play Soulcalibur on a mobile device, but more power
They
to
shouldn't.
you.
Especially in 2012?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Oof, I don't know, man. Oof.
That must have been rough.
Well, at least you answered my question. Now I know where the caliber comes from. Good old portmanteau.
Yeah, makes perfect sense to me.
Does now, yes.
Got rid of the Soul moniker, like the different kind of swords moniker afterwards. So I wonder what it would have been like if it was called like Soul Zwei for Soulcalibur 2. I mean, or Soul Hander, Soul Handy.
Edging with that soul hander. Okay.
We're never going to let that go.
Nope.
It's going to be great. I got to give, the producer here, Yotoriyama, like a lot of credit, because this was a time, if you look back at the fighting game craze, I think fighting games by this time had kind of petered out, especially what Soul Edge came out in 96. And that was kind of at the peak of 3D fighting game craze. But even so, the genre had started to fade a little bit in terms of the mainstream view. But just go over to Capcom, like the Street Fighter Alpha series, which Alpha 1 and 2 were almost released in the same year. And then Alpha 3 was released less than a year and a half after that. So the turnaround rate for fighting games was always very, very fast paced. And for them to actually make the conscious decision to slow down and be like, yo, we want to make this game better. I think that holds up as a testament to the quality of what we would eventually get on the Dreamcast. And I haven't played the arcade version. I don't know if it's the same kind of direction there. Kiyoshi, have you played the arcade version?
Yes, actually, I'm gonna get into that in due time. But yeah, I've played that. It was very good, even in the arcade. Of course, it was using the PlayStation 1 hardware, so it didn't look nearly as good. But the movement and the combat and everything were largely the same. One of the things that I think is cool about the Dreamcast version is that the arcade had 3 balance patches or so. And then the Dreamcast was actually the 4th. So the Dreamcast one is actually the most balanced Soulcalibur game possibly ever that they've made.
Yeah, I saw that too while reading the history of it, is that it came with all the gameplay improvements that the arcade version didn't have either.
Right.
So it had to be, and I remember, how do I put this? I don't remember anything about this game being mentioned whatsoever until the review scores started coming out either. So it's not like I was all hyped about the arcade experience being better than the arcade experience, because I didn't know anything about the arcade experience. But I know, Shane, I'm going to probably hear a no from you. And if that's not the case, just say something. But do either of you even remember this game being really heavily marketed until it got that insane critical reception?
No.
Heavily marketed. No, not really. No.
I remember seeing it in my local arcade, because I definitely played it a few times just to be like, this looks neat. I didn't do very well, but I do remember it being there.
Yeah, it was in all my local arcades too, actually. So
wow.
it had a presence, but I didn't see a big marketing push or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess we've already kind of delved into the personal experiences, as it were. So let's just stay there and keep this going. Shane, how about you really kick this one off with it and just let us know the personal experience you have had with Soulcalibur.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
That's literally it. Like, I saw it in the arcade and I was like, hey, that looks pretty neat and kind of different from these other games. Let me take a moment from getting my ass beat at Virtua Fighter to come over here and take a look at this one too. So there you go. That's pretty much it. Also, probably, you know what I'm realizing? I think I, for some reason, liked the idea of fighting games more than actually the like execution, because now that I'm really thinking about it, when I went to the arcade as a youngin', I definitely tried more fighting games than I thought I otherwise would have. Like, I remember bouncing between this and, like I said, Virtua Fighter, because we had that giant ass Virtua Fighter cabinet.
Oh yeah, those were cool.
Yeah, right. I think that's the only reason I played it. It was just because I was like, wow, this cabinet's like 4 times as big as everything else in here. It was like that, and then like Tekken, all of which I sucked absolute ass at, but they sure did look neat. And this one had Ivy, so A+.
Ivy makes everything better.
True.
Yes, she does.
At least in my world. Yes. One of the most preeminent early Dami mommies. I'll go next here and say that, in the arcades, I don't recall ever seeing it. I remember seeing a lot of Tekken. I remember seeing Tekken 3, but I don't ever remember seeing Soulcalibur. And in fact, the only time I had heard of Soulcalibur, the first time I had heard of Soulcalibur, period, was when the gaming magazines had their issue that would come out prior to the Dreamcast launch, where they got early access to all of the launch games, and like, oh, here's our launch issue, check out everything. And here's this game called Soulcalibur, which I had never heard of before, and it got like a perfect score from EGM, which at the time was extraordinarily rare. I think they had only given 2 prior to that, with Metal Gear Solid and Ocarina, and those were the only 2 games that ever got a 10 out of 10 from EGM. Like, no Mario game, no Zelda game prior to that, not even Street Fighter 2. Samurai Showdown got really close, but yeah, it was the third one that I could recall, and it would, like, Gran Turismo 2 would get one a little bit later. But I was like, okay, like, I got a Dreamcast, and this is supposed to be the absolute, like, shit. This is supposed to be the best game for the system. It's supposed to be the best looking one. And I can't remember if I got it day one or if I got it for Christmas. A lot of things are murky around that time about when I got a lot of games, because there was a lot of games that were coming. I think I said this in the previous episode. The end of 1999 is bonkers in terms of the quality of games that were coming out just leading up to holiday season. Like, you would get for most system launches and, legacy systems firing on all cylinders. So Soulcalibur was definitely something that I had before the end of the year. Once I started playing that game, once I got done with Sonic Adventure, of course, I could not put it down. It was just a really phenomenal experience. We'll get to this in graphics, of course, but this was the introduction to the next generation.
It truly was.
Yeah. Like, you looked at it and like, this is where gaming is going. Okay. Like, this is the next step. And the sad thing is, well, I'll talk more about that in graphics, but I don't want to say sad thing quite yet, but yeah, it was just mind-blowingly amazing looking. Nothing that was out on the market at that time came close. It was just head and shoulders above everything. So that was also a selling point. Yeah, I played it a lot. I unlocked everything, got everything within the game, and the Dreamcast died over some time, and of course, Phantasy Star Online started eating into all my time as well.
Oh,
That's my experience with Soulcalibur until I really picked it up today. I mean, unless you want to talk about the sequels, I think I played Soulcalibur 2 a little bit. That's just because there's a lot of hype around it with like the Link Heihachi Spawn thing, mostly Link. That's really it.
Link was the thing.
Link was definitely the thing. But how about yourself, Kiyoshi?
Okay, I'm going to crack my knuckles here.
There we go.
So at the time, related to the other episode I was on, I was working at Atari Games in California, Northern California. And if you know Northern California, that's where all the arcade games from Capcom and Namco were being tested. So that's probably why Soulcalibur was in all the arcades here. Also, all of the new Capcom games are all over the arcades here. But I was working at Atari, and my friends on a fighting game at Atari, which unfortunately did not get released. It was called 10th Degree. You can look that up if anybody's curious. They were studying other fighting games to make sure they had a handle on what they wanted to do with their game. And one of the games that they purchased was Soulcalibur. And they installed it in the Atari arcade. They had like a little arcade section in the building. As soon as we got that in there, everybody wanted to play it because it was really cool. Personally, I really like Samurai Showdown. And so I was really into weapon-based 2D fighting because of Samurai Showdown. And so when I saw this game, it just like blew my mind. I was like, wow, this is really cool. And it's like a 3D Samurai Showdown is what I kind of thought at the time. And honestly, is way better than a 3D Samurai Showdown to me now.
What, you didn't like the Samurai Showdown game for the Hyper Neo Geo 64?
What, the one where everybody pretends it doesn't exist?
Yeah, that one.
That one, yeah. Amazing. Actually, you know what I do like about that game is the 2D illustrator. They got shafted because it wasn't 2D, but the 2D illustrator who worked on that game, excellent.
Oh, yeah. SNK, always good with that.
Always good.
Anyways,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
Always good.
Yeah.
Anyway, so some of my friends on that fighting game team and the QA guys would come over and we'd play that game at lunch and after work, like 4+ hours a day. So we were playing Soulcalibur like 4 hours a day. And we got so good, like everybody who was involved got so good that like we were basically tournament level in the area. The QA testers were actually like winning tournaments at Soulcalibur in Northern California. Like I was never really into like actual tournament performance at the time, but anyway, yeah. I was so hyped for Soulcalibur on Dreamcast. Like I started seeing previews of it and stuff. It's like it was like obviously insane, right? Because it's like it's an arcade game, but this is better than the arcade game. It looks better. I didn't know at the time, but it plays better. And that was coming out, and I actually was so hyped about it. I bought a Japanese Dreamcast, way before it even came out, just to make sure I got one. And I had to wait to get Soulcalibur because I bought the Japanese Dreamcast basically at launch. When I got it, I was super happy. It was so good, so good. And we started playing that version too. And I liked all the extra modes, like the adventure. What I forget what it's called.
Mission mode.
Mission. The mission mode was really fun. And I think Soul Edge had a better mission mode, maybe, but Soulcalibur's was no slouch. It was good. And yeah, like everything about it, like the unlockable characters and everything, like, man, I just love that game so much. And like you, I played it to death, and I played it with friends. I played it whenever I had a chance, basically, when it came out. And those friends who I worked with and played the game with, I'm still friends with some of those guys today. And every so often we talk about Soulcalibur still, so it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I'm going to spoil a little bit here, but I think you're going to be somewhat disappointed in our Patreon pontifications. Not to call out our patrons or anything. It's just like it's shocking. Fine. It's shocking.
I mean, it's fine. He's going to be disappointed with me. So
no, I know what the general feeling about Soulcalibur is going forward from the first games, like legendary reception. I'm willing to hear whatever people have to offer. I understand.
Oh, I don't think it's going to be what you think it's going to be if that's your attitude towards that. I think you'll see where it's going.
Okay.
If you already haven't, right?
I've been trying not to look. I want it to be a surprise.
Got it. All right. So let's get into the plot writing of this game. And guess what? There is a plot. I looked for it in the manual. It's not in there, by the way. So you would be forgiven to think that you could find this on your own. It's kind of in there if you beat the game and you see the endings, and if you get into the art gallery, it has images and stuff like that where you can kind of decipher it.
It was Dark Souls before Dark Souls.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yes, it was.
Read the weapon descriptions.
There you go. Yeah.
It's all hidden. I mean, it is true. You got to go into character profiles in the game, and it'll tell you everything. But in terms of what the plot is, and again, this is from Wikipedia, not from the manual, and I will read directly what is on that site. It says, The mystical sword of legends, the Soul Edge, ended up in the hands of the dreaded pirate Cervantes de Leon of Spain. But for the next 25 years, he stayed dormant on the remnants of a Spanish port town, taking the souls of those who reached him during their search of the sword. Like Soul Edge, starts in the year 1583. The reign of terror of Cervantes was soon to start, but through the joined efforts of Greek divine warrior Sophitia Alexandra and Japanese ninja Taki, he was stopped and killed, with one of the twin Soul Edge blades being shattered in the process. As it was about to tear itself apart, young German knight Siegfried, I can't say that.
Stauffen.
Stauffen?
Stauffen. You have to be angry. It's required. Siegfried Stauffen.
Stauffen! Approached the port town and battled Cervantes, whose corpse had been momentarily reanimated through Soul Edge's will. After emerging victorious, Siegfried's attention turned to the sword. The moment he took the hilt of the cursed blade, Soul Edge released a bright column of light into the sky. That's that edging, Shane.
Right.
This was known as the evil seed. Definitely edging. Bound to bring calamity and death in its wake.
3 years busting after the most luminous of nuts. Anyway, keep going.
Woo! Sweet release. 3 years after those events, in 1586 AD, Soul Edge uses Siegfried as its host, and now Siegfried is Nightmare, a knight wearing azure armor and sporting a hideously deformed right arm. Europe plunges into a vortex of slaughters as he and his followers claim souls to strengthen the blade in its weakened state. Unknown to them, a group of warriors met on their journey to stop Soul Edge, and with them, 3 sacred weapons join once again. I don't know what the other 2 are.
I think it's the Soulcalibur and the Kali Yuga, which is this thing that Kilik wears, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah. Well, isn't like Zhang Hua's weapon one of the sacred ones?
Zhang Hua's is the Soulcalibur, yeah.
Oh, shit, hers is the Soulcalibur. I don't remember being called that. I don't remember the Kali Yuga.
She uses the Soulcalibur. It's not her weapon is just it's not a rapier, it's like a Chinese sword, but one of her official weapons is the Soulcalibur. I haven't gone back to the plot in a long time, so I was hoping you could fill that in, but
well, it's not like the Dreamcast game really wants you to know either.
No, it doesn't.
To be
it doesn't
fair.
really tell you. Yeah,
I will give it that though, with at least with Xianghua, who I guess is the canonical winner of the Soulcalibur tournament. I don't know. I'm putting this like Mortal Kombat terms, but like she's the only one that when you get to the end of the game,
I think she like inherited it or something. Yeah,
yeah. Like there's a special scene for her. Like everyone else just kind of holds up their weapon. Like so, the final boss is like this giant flame monster named Inferno. Like everyone covers their face with their weapon, and there's like some lighting effects on their weapon and all that stuff like that. Zhang Hua like crumples over, and then her blade changes form, and she's the only one where anything does anything like that. So as far as I remember,
right? And she gets the Soulcalibur, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And then if you unlock all the characters and use her third outfit, which is, I think it's the most revealing one with the most amount of jiggle physics, because of course, then you get to play as Inferno.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Inferno and Edgemaster are basically the same, but yeah, like different graphics.
Like the Shang Tsung of
this Shang Tsung character.
Yeah. Except you don't get a choice. It just says you're playing with this weapon.
It's
now.
random. Yeah.
Yeah.
You play those guys to style on people, basically.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. So I got to ask, I read that off. Kiyoshi, what do you think of the plot here? I think it's mostly in the endings, but maybe you could fill in some other things. I know you said you've been out of it for a while.
I don't know if I can really fill in any more than that. That is the plot. Basically, in Soulcalibur, I believe Kilik and Xianghua, who are friends, banded together with other people to try to defeat Soul Edge. And that's just basically it. They're trying to kill Soul Edge. And of course, the good sword, Soulcalibur, is the weapon of choice to use to defeat Soul Edge. So it's a pretty simple plot, but there's a lot of little things they've added to it.
So do you know like how Inferno is the final boss? Like, why is it Inferno and not Nightmare? Nightmare would make sense.
Yeah, Nightmare makes sense. I don't remember if there's any reason. Okay. Apart from just having a challenging, final boss that changes form, right?
Well, yeah, like that's like a fighting game staple.
Yes.
Or at least like just a challenging final boss just in general. The Final Fantasy IX boss approach. See, I think Final Fantasy IX was inspired by fighting games. There you go. Just a random final boss that makes no sense. Shane, I'm continuously vindicating your choice when it comes to Crazy Taxi on this Dreamcast month.
Hey man, I don't got to do anything. It naturally works itself out.
Exactly. You're continuously proven right. So any input on the plot here, Shane?
No, I mean, I think you covered it pretty well. I mean, I hesitate to use the word deep, but I mean, it's surprisingly a bit more fleshed out than one might assume. I mean, ultimately, it's just a backdrop to be like, hey, check out this weapon fighting game we made. But I don't know. I kind of dig it. Like it's that like weird off the wall shit that I kind of like, you know, there's like, yeah, he's a dread pirate. And then he's also kind of a pirate zombie for a little bit. And then there's this other dude and he becomes a fucking dark knight and destroys all of Europe. And yeah, you know what? I kind of dig it. It's kind of cool. Maybe I kind of wish it was a little bit more upfront about it, because until I went after the fact and read up on the actual plot of this game, I didn't really get much of that at all from playing it. So well, there's that.
They must have known, because the sequels go really hard on making sure you know the plot. I think especially 3.
Yeah, we'll see. There you go.
Yeah.
If only they did with Final Fantasy 15 did and released a DVD alongside of it.
There you go. It needed a movie that you have to watch before you play the game.
Oh,
just to understand what's going on.
Please watch the anime also and read the book.
Yeah. By the way, I was looking it up while we were talking because you made me curious because I wasn't sure either. Evidently, the reason that Inferno is the final boss of Soulcalibur is because Inferno is the physical manifestation of Soul Edge's will and power. So that is why.
Uh-huh.
So you are literally fighting Soul Edge.
It makes me wonder, what the fuck is Nightmare then?
He's just a pawn, man.
He's Siegfried.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's Soul Edge is trying to consume as many souls as possible, and it's just using Siegfried as a method of transportation.
True.
He's the Yaris of the Soul Edge. No, so
oh god.
I think what was going on is that the developers wanted to make sure that people could still play Siegfried, or quote unquote Nightmare, right?
Yeah.
As a playable character, not as the boss, right? They can't have their cake and eat it too and have him show up twice. So what do? You have some other guy as the boss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is referred to as the Crystal of Darkness, and because it has consumed the souls of many strong warriors over a very long period of time, it is indeed a most formidable foe. So there you go.
I guess my input on this is that this is kind of like a Tekken-ass style plot, which kind of more originated with, the Mortal Kombat series, where no, it's not all in your face, but if you want to get into it, yeah, there's going to be a lot to discover. And the game's going to handle it in the most cheesy and weird way possible. At least there's no like weird FMV scenes at the end. Like they handled the endings in a very Capcom kind of style, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And I think like if you know the lore, or you don't even really have to know, but it does make you more curious about the lore. The endings do provide a lot of information on the characters themselves. And I do like the fact too that if you do mission mode, there's another mode that you can go into. I think is it exhibition, or there's another mode that you can get into that you can look up all the character profiles, see their motivation, what their weapons are, why they carry that weapon. And like there's the weapons even have a background and lore to it as well, which is like really cool. The thing is that you as the player have to be invested because it's not going to shove it in your face, which good or bad. Like, I think there can be a lot of takes on that, on like what kind of gameplay style you're going to want to do. But generally speaking, especially like for the very casual fighting game fan, like you're not going to give a shit. You just want to go and you want to beat people up. I think this is just mostly for the people who really dig the game and really want to get invested. So I'll give Soulcalibur its kudos, even though there's a lot of things in here that sound ridiculous, like fighting a zombie Cervantes. Sure.
Well, I mean, he died in the last game, so.
And then he died again.
And then he died again. And he's still not dead. He's still in the games. He just, he just gets more and more undead. This is how he works.
More undead.
He's just more undead.
But I think we're good. If we're good on the plot, I think it's time to move into our media section traditionally, which is the gameplay. Now, Kiyoshi, I'm going to start off with you here because we'll sandwich this. Is that how the sandwich works, Shane? You start out with the good part, and then you get to the bad part, and then you get to the good part again.
Yeah.
I'll have you go after Kiyoshi here. Kiyoshi.
Wonder what that implies.
break this down.
Okay, so I feel like the gameplay is where Soulcalibur actually doesn't get enough credit, especially from Namco themselves. Oddly enough,
yeah,
it's a very very technical and it's deep. Like it has 3 different positions you can hit, like a high, a medium, a low. It has the 8-way run. It has quick side steps, parries, ring out tactics, unblockable moves, like all this stuff, right? It actually takes a really long time to learn the depth of the actual system of the game. And of course, the character matchups like usual in a fighting game. The thing is, after a while, Namco decided that Soulcalibur is basically their fighting game for casuals. It's weird because in Soulcalibur 6, they actually have this Street Fighter 4 style focus attack that cancels your attacks and then pushes the players apart in this weird cinematic thing. And then you play rock, paper, scissors to see this, kind of random outcome. And I'm like, what is this doing in any sort of serious fighting game, right? Like, who would put that in a fighting game?
The people who made Alex Kidd.
I feel like this is the result of all of Namco kind of just assuming that Soulcalibur is their casual fighting game and Tekken is their hardcore fighting game. And they did all that stuff with the character creator stuff. And there's, they push more and more story on people, which I think is okay, actually, for the story campaign mode. But eventually, Soulcalibur 1 has arcade endings. Some of the later Soulcaliburs don't have endings if you play arcade mode. I think this all came about partially because Soulcalibur is considered a easy mashing type of game. I feel really bad for Soulcalibur because if you actually know the depth of the system, you can beat a mashing player very easily if you're good at the game, but it takes a while to actually get that good. And I don't know if a lot of people actually made it that far. Yeah, so it feels sort of like the game got a bit written off that way. But I really love the system. I think it's great. It's very easy to play. And that's why it's good for mashing because, if you push forward an attack or back an attack or you do your 8-way run and attack, you get all these different moves depending on which direction you're pressing with which button. You can combine buttons, different buttons do different combinations with other buttons. You can get a lot of unblockables or things that will stun your enemy if you do moves in a certain way or if you press buttons together. All these things add up to this very complicated tactics that you need, and you need to keep your spacing right. And you have to make sure you're not too close to the edge if you can, because you don't want to get ringed out. Of course, knowing the proper moves to ring somebody out is also very important, or to juggle them in the air. A lot of the game comes down to outplaying your opponent, but also outsmarting them in terms of spatial awareness and positioning, right? And so it's a very complicated game if you really break it down. It's also just sort of odd that it's known as this very easy mashing game, and that's all it is. And I've always thought that was unfortunate because I feel like the game has a lot more to offer if people really give it a chance. So I guess that's my take on the gameplay.
Shane, you strike me as the target audience for the easy button mashy fighting game style. So what were your thoughts?
I'm going to pretend to not take that as something offensive.
I mean, it's true. There's
you're out of
every
line,
fighting game,
but you're right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So, man, all right. Actually, you know what? I totally agree in that I think calling this a button masher fighter is doing it a disservice and also a complete egregious mislabeling of it, because I, as the hyper casual fighting game person, I was going to say fan, but I can't really call myself that person who plays games. I went into it expecting literal button mashing. Okay, I'm going to be able to just smash X 3 times and then just randomly swap to B twice and maybe some A thrown in for some spice. And this game is going to be programmed in such a way that they're going to take those different transitions into account, and it's all just going to feel really smooth. And regardless of what I'm doing, like it's still going to feel good, and it's going to flow. I'm going to be in this like flow state of just like button mashy glory. No, it's fucking not that, like, at all. Sure, you can button mash the same like moves over and over again, but you can fucking do that in any fighting game practically. Like, I'm failing to see where this whole like this is the casual button masher fighter thing like came from, because I mean, maybe it was
Maxi
of that time.
It's Maxi. Yeah, it's Maxi.
Okay, great. One fucking character, I guess. That does not, well, for the record, I didn't play as Maxi, so there you go. But I think that's doing it a disservice, because if you're saying like, oh, well, this game has one character where you can just like brain dead your way through everything, like, okay, well, great, but that does not describe the 95% of the rest of the game. Like, I played predominantly as Ivy for reasons, and I also and played as
she's the most
Taki.
complicated character.
Yeah, great. I'm glad I started with that one, by the way. I swapped over to Taki, and I had more success with her. I'll be honest.
Really?
Even then, like I feel like you can only get so far just sort of brainlessly slamming buttons, even in a game that apparently is supposed to allow you to do that, because there is a lot more nuance. Now, for what it's worth, I do think that the more nuanced parts of the fighting in this are more accessible than other fighting games that I have played before. I will give it credit where I believe it is due. And with the mission mode, I actually think it does a pretty good job, especially at the time, of really walking you through like how to functionally like understand the systems and really wrap your head around how they're supposed to work. I think it does a really good job of doing that thing that we always like to talk about of showing and not telling. And so
yeah,
I think that is a success in Soulcalibur's, corner, because I was able to go into the mission mode. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, out of everything that's in this game, that was my favorite part. I think I had the most fun with that, just because it provided enough sort of like varied gameplay to keep things interesting, because that's one of the things that I've never understood. My brain doesn't work that way, I guess. I've never understood why people are so into fighting games when it's just like, okay, it's like the same thing. It's two rounds over and over until your fucking eyes bleed. I'm like, I don't get the draw. I really don't. And I'm glad that it's totally some people's jam, but it is not mine. If I'm going to have repetitive gameplay, I will go into a loot grinder. Thank you very much. Like a gentleman. But yeah, I don't know, man. That's a lot of me kind of like rambling a bit, I think. But suffice to say, I would not call this a button masher fighter based on my experience, like, at all. I think it takes a lot more attention to detail, but I think it's accessible enough that even a total, pleb like me can still manage to pull off some pretty cool things. So
I think why it was known that way, especially in its era, is because you don't have to do special moves like a Street Fighter style game, or an SNK had even harder special moves. And in Soulcalibur, everything is pretty, like you said, accessible. Either you just press a direction in a button, or you press a couple of buttons, or it's not, you don't have to do complicated dragon punches, or well, I mean, there are some in there, but they're not the necessity, where they're
actually like the moves you really don't want to use either. They're like not priority moves,
right? They're not the most important moves in the game. Whereas in a 2D fighter, especially the ones at that time, you needed to know how to do those games. You needed to be good at them in order to succeed. Whereas in Soulcalibur, you basically don't.
Yeah, Soulcalibur is much more about positioning.
Yeah,
and timing.
It's very footsies oriented, if you want to use the fighting game lingo, instead of being special move focused.
So I'm going to go to a lot of what you said, Kiyoshi, and I'll kind of expound on why I think it's known as the button masher for Shane here. Is that, yeah, there are characters that are much more in the foundation of being generous to a button mashing player, like we said with Maxi. Now, the two characters that you decided to play as, Ivy and Taki, which I completely understand why you would play as them. Not hating whatsoever, but those are probably two of the least friendly button mashing characters in the game. I struggled with Taki, and like
Especially
Ivy, I could never.
You can't mash with Ivy, really. No,
I think you can get away with it a little bit more with Ivy than Taki, but I think at that point you're not really taking advantage of what Ivy can do.
I think it's the other way around, actually. I think you can mash better with Taki. Yeah,
I agree.
I think with the kick button, if you're using the kick more, she's that's where I found success on my recent playthroughs. I did not like my time with Taki.
No, 100% the kick is the mashy goodness there. I will say that though, I felt like I was able to pull off some of the more like special moves, like her, I don't remember what the fuck they call it, but the little charge up thing that you can do by pressing the two buttons at once. Like I was able to consistently do that and the variations of that move way more than I could do. I couldn't do fuck all with Ivy. I'll be honest.
Yeah. I think Ivy is like still my worst time out of all the characters that like you go through and you get a time, it ranks them all out. Like Ivy's the worst one. And I think my number one is Mitsurugi, which is weird. I don't know how that happened. But and then number two is Xianghua. But like that's the beauty of this game, I think, is that if I want to sit someone down and be like, hey, play Soulcalibur. But if you're going to play it and you're a noob and you don't like fighting games, like start out with Maxi, because Maxi's going to make you feel like a badass. And then you're going to get to a limit with Maxi over some time, because like I even found myself like, why am I still moving? I'm not even pressing any buttons. And he continues to move his nunchuck around. I need like, no. And then
that's actually the hard part about Maxi. Yeah. Is he keeps moving.
You can't control him.
Yeah.
Then you like move on to other characters, and like the more further you move on, the more technical they become, and knowing when to implement those moves, learning what moves can attack a player on the ground, learning what characters, like as you said, will do the ring out in a lot of ways. And we were talking about this in our Discord with Dave Jackson, who also hates fighting games but loves Smash Brothers, and in a lot of ways. And I know you hate Smash Brothers, Shane, so I know this applies in
I also hate
neither
Smash Brothers.
Case. You hate Smash Brothers? Okay.
Yes, so do I.
But like Soulcalibur has a lot of Smash Brothers elements. There's a lot there when you think about it, because there's a move for every direction. So you like have a neutral move. If you just want to press Y, you're going to get a Y attack. But if you press up and Y, there's going to be an up and Y attack, and a down and Y attack, and a back Y, forward Y, running Y forward, pressing back, Y plus X. And these are all like on the Dreamcast controller, by the way. And it applies to like every single button, and they're all situational and position based, where once you learn what every single thing does, you can completely exploit an opponent that has no idea what they're doing.
Yes.
It might be hard to eventually get there, but you can get there even when the noob, when you give them Maxi, feels like a badass. Once you learn like what character's style applies towards you, like appeals to you to the most. And once you learn that is so deeply rewarding on a lot of levels, because you can still go in there and lazily hack away once you learn the basics of putting in combos, or you learn their one unblockable move, or you learn one move that creates space. Like there's all these different things you can do, but like just learning how to balance it out and learning how to swap through characters, like with like once you get that good with like Edgemaster and Inferno, like it is such a joy. And like the other thing is how fast this game moves. So like in arcade mode, when I was running through arcade mode, it doesn't give you a score, it gives you the time. And I think my fastest time was like 3 minutes and 19 seconds or something like that. With my slowest one, which was Ivy, was like almost 6 minutes. And that's because the battles, the fights move so quickly. Every single attack is like critical and landing. And of course, if it hits you, you're taking a similar amount of damage. So as Kiyoshi was saying about the tactical mindset, about what needs to be applied, not just to the space of the ring, but how much damage you can take. And then it becomes kind of a cat and mouse game, especially with the 8 direction movement. Sometimes you're just trying to circle around them so they make a mistake and attack you and leave themselves vulnerable. There's a ton of depth. And the other thing I like is just the diversity and the range of all the characters. And even though there's characters that initially feel like they're mirror characters, like Sung Mina and Kalik, or Lizard Man and Sophidia, like, well, Rock and Astaroth are essentially the same, and so are Siegfried and Nightmare. Like, there's no real differences.
Mostly. Yeah.
But even when they're mirror characters, there are subtle enough differences that the play style can change to a small yet important degree, which would be enough probably in competitive play to affect balancing. And that's, I love that. I absolutely love that. And also getting to the mission mode, Shane, I think you said it best. It does a good job of teaching a player how to play. It's a lot like the Spirit board. I think it's called Spirit board in Smash Brothers Ultimate, where you're getting all these.
It doesn't matter what it's called.
I know. But you're getting all these goodies. You're getting all these goodies while the game is also teaching you how to play. I did not know it was in Soul Edge, so I don't want to give it all the credit in the world. But it is a very great way to learn how to play the game while also rewarding the player on how to play that with unlockables, with different stages you unlocked or different modes you unlock. And like, you can even unlock fan art. You can get fan art in this game. Like, Namco's like, hey, we had all these drawings. They're in the game. And that's cool. Like, for a series that I don't think was really well known, they were just rewarding their fans.
They give you basically like all the production art and a bunch of fan art and anything they could find that was cool to put in there. They put a lot of really good stuff in there.
Yeah, it was great.
Oh yeah, there's some stuff they put in the game that's just really funny and awesome. I wanted to just highlight a couple things. Like, there's the Voldo trampoline, the crotch trampoline. You know about that one?
I don't, but it's Voldo,
like
so just
you can
keep
curl
going.
him. You can like curl him over backwards, and then like crab. You can like crab crawl towards somebody, and then you can literally hip thrust them, and they'll like go shooting up in the air.
Yeah.
And there's stuff like Yoshimitsu can actually commit seppuku, but it does more damage to your opponent, so you can like die together and stuff. It's crazy. Like, they have all sorts of really like funny stuff. Like, if you get really good at the game, you can actually use these things in fights, and it just gets more and more crazy and fun. I like the little touches they did. Like, there's just one thing I wanted to point out, that they used a lot of creativity in making the game fun, but if you're not like really good and you're just mashing, you're not going to see a lot of those things either.
Yeah, and I think like the game teaches you not to mash in the mission mode, where it's kind of like, hey, you're poisoned and your health is falling fast, so like you need to kill them quickly.
Yeah, you need to win quickly. Yeah,
and so like you might not be able to mash, because if they're just blocking all the time, like that's not going to work out for you.
Right.
And that's the way you get your additional modes, and then you can put Astaroth in a sexy pose in the beginning. or Voldo.
Director mode.
Yes, the director, the cinematic director.
Which you don't get until you get all 322 cards unlocked, which is kind of a pain in the ass, but it's not too bad, because the initial opening isn't too good. Well, it's fine, but compared to the full one is a lot better, but it takes work to get. Anyone else want to? I know there's probably more than we want to say in the gameplay here. Anyone else want to jump in?
I was just going to say, I think that the sentiment, if you play against people, is very different than playing against the computer in terms of mashing.
I would say so.
Yeah, if you don't think the game is a mash friendly game, it's probable that you haven't played a lot of people in the game, because I mean, at the time that was the sentiment, because people would win and you're like, hey, how'd you do that? And they're like, I don't know, I was just mashing or whatever.
But there's a lot of that in Tekken as well.
Sure.
Tekken, like Eddie, like people
Eddie
fucking
Gordo
hate Eddie
game,
Gordo.
Yeah, for the same reason.
Or
same reason,
Bake, the kicking guy.
Oh yeah.
Same deal. Yeah, like there's button mashers in Tekken. And so like that's not, if they work closely with the Tekken team, and why wouldn't they? It's Namco. That makes sense that you're going to have more beginner friendly characters. And I think you should. That should be something.
It should be, yeah. Actually, so
that exists.
Shane missed the actual beginner character, which is Sophitia.
Is she? I hate her.
She has the simplest moveset.
True. Is she like the same as Link? Is that like her?
No. Link
like
is
the basis
totally
for
different.
Link? Okay.
Yeah.
I know we're talking about like Soulcalibur 2 now, but like, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, Sophitia has the most like basic moveset, so she's a good one to learn the game on, in my opinion.
I like Lizard Man more. I guess like very similar.
Well, you can play Lizard Man.
Yeah.
You have to unlock him though, so yeah.
I guess that's where I like to say that like that's another good thing I like about this game as well, is that not like the characters are extremely diverse, and I'm not like one of those huge representation dudes. That's not me, but like just knowing that all your characters are from like different regions and they're all represented fairly well. Like you have Clique, you have Zhangma like from China, you have or like Clique is, I don't know where Clique's from, but you have like Taki from Japan.
He's also from China, yeah.
Oh, he's from China too. Okay,
I think so, yeah.
Astaroth from Hell, probably. Lizard Man from Hollywood. You got Sophidia from Greece. So like you have like the diverse set of characters that you can all play with, and I think that is really cool. That is like, it's kind of like the world, like it's like Street Fighter 2, but it feels more thought out.
The World Warriors,
that makes sense.
One might say.
The World Warriors. Yeah. But I mean, it feels more like genuine, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And
like,
then you got the Bondage Wolverine.
Yeah, sure. I don't know where he's from. Probably Spain.
Spain. Yes.
That sounds right. It's Vega, right?
It's Vega. Yeah, it's
noticing a trend.
Vega. Oh man. Oh god. I think that really covers it. I mean, this is the deep game. Shane didn't like it.
Did I say that?
But
did I say that really?
He didn't say it yet.
I just want to be clear that I think I've been mostly positive.
All right, are we ready? Speaking of positive, are we ready to talk about how this game looks?
Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, Shane, kick this one off. What do you think of the graphics of this game?
I get the sense that this game was probably an unintended sexual awakening for many people. That's my take on it. But between like Ivy and then what the fuck is his name? Volvo? What is it? Car? What's his name again?
Voldo.
Yeah, that one.
He's about to drive through you. Is what
I'm just saying that like there's a lot of bondage shit in this game. So I think that coupled with the masterful application of jiggle physics, I just get the feeling like this might have been a gateway for some people. I mean, it looks damn good still to this day, by the way. Game looks great.
Yeah, exceedingly so. I'll jump on this one next. And kind of what I said earlier, like when this game came out, it was like shockingly good looking. And this is where I was going to say what the sad thing is about this game is I don't think there's a Dreamcast game, to my knowledge, off the top of my head, not to say there isn't, that looks as good as Soulcalibur. And this is a launch game. Now, there's more technically impressive ones. Like Shenmue is technically more impressive than Soulcalibur just because of everything it has going on with it.
Forklifts.
And how it still looks good. But in terms, what's that?
Forklifts,
sailors, you know.
Yeah, the usual.
All that stuff. Yeah. But in terms of just like graphical fidelity, I honestly can't think of anything that really supersedes Soulcalibur. Like it moves at 60 frames per second, I'm assuming, right, Kiyoshi? I'm thinking
yeah,
that.
of course, yes.
Yeah, it's a fighting game, and like fighting games have to. And then like the environments look great. The characters, like I was looking at the character models, and one of the most important things to me when I'm going back to these older games, I'm looking at 3D models, is how good are the characters' faces animated? Because during that time, that was something that was still, there's a lot of difficulty making sure that the faces of the characters were looking really good. Go back to Metal Gear Solid 1998. Like the faces of the characters look like shit. Like if you want to go back to something that looked good, it was like Mega Man Legends, but that was more because it was just a more cell shaded anime aesthetic.
Well, they put a lot of work into yeah.
And you didn't really, I don't think you saw a game as graphically impressive until maybe Final Fantasy X on the PlayStation 2, or maybe Metal Gear Solid 2. Which was like 2 years later.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
You bring that up, and I didn't really think about it, like in terms of where this sits sort of in the video game timeline. But now that you brought that up, fucking GoldenEye was what, like the year before this, right? I think.
Yeah.
And
98.
Yeah.
Or no, GoldenEye was 2 years, 97. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. 97. But still, like, damn, like, you look at like anyone really, but take like one of the, GoldenEye henchmen, for example, and you compare those faces to what you have in there here. It's like, ooh, it's like night and day.
It's also the fluidity of the motion
Mm-hmm.
that these characters move at.
Yeah, you could tell that Namco really loved how well they did on the I'm going to call it motion capture, even though actually it's not motion capture as it turned out. I knew a guy who worked on, I think, Soulcalibur 2 from Japan, and he said that they actually hand animated all that stuff.
Wow.
Even though I think it's probably rotoscoped, but it's hand animated. I think I know why, because the data size is a problem if you mocap. But yeah, they knew how good that all their motion looked. And so they actually went as far as to have katas for all the characters.
Yes.
They would actually go through the, like a wushu training like montage practically. And it's crazy. Like the amount of detail in the motion, I think, was revolutionary at that time. You can continue now, Chris, but that's what I wanted to point that out, because you could tell that even Namco thought that was a big deal. Like, people need to see this.
Yeah. And it was so good at the time. It was the game's selling point. As we pointed out in the brief history, like Sonic Adventure was what brought you to the Dreamcast. Soulcalibur was what made your ass stay on the couch and play it. in terms of just like graphical presentation. It was like, this is a new console. This is what you're going to get. Did you always get that? No, but it gave people an idea, or at least a hope, of what future experiences you could get out of this console. It was at its peak, and I think the graphics still hold up to this day. Like we've talked about this on COG 96, about how when you go back to these older games, what looks better, a 2D game or a 3D game, because 3D games were still in transition and 2D games pixel art had really been perfected. Soulcalibur is like a representation of that time, where if you compare it to a 2D game, it probably looks better. Like, this is Soulcalibur is the beginning of really where the modern graphical presentation is at. Does it, like, do games today look better? Of course they do. I'm not even going to like entertain that argument. But when you started getting into the law of diminishing returns, especially through a VGA port, and you're seeing this in like its utmost capabilities, like you're down that path. You're almost there. There's a noticeable difference, but we're talking about a game from 25 years ago. And you're looking at the gap between modern games, and then you compare that game compared to a game 5 years released before it, and it's just exceedingly ridiculous about how far along it had come. And it was the showpiece. I'll stop there and give it to you, Ohmi.
The graphics in the game are exceptional, especially for its era. Could the PS2 eventually do better? Yes, but for what it was in 1999, it's just amazing. And I think even if you're used to games these days, you can go back to Soulcalibur and look at it, and you won't be like bothered by its graphics, right? It still looks really good. The presentation's very nice. The characters still look very good. The motion is beautiful. Even what Shane keeps mentioning, the boob jiggle. But
I feel like I said it like once.
Okay, it's been mentioned a couple times.
Oh, okay.
But there's actually more than just boob jiggle. If you look closer,
Ooh,
they actually jiggle thighs, biceps, butts. There's actually a lot of little secondary motion in the game.
Shit. All right. I'll be right back.
Actually, a lot of 3D games, even after, did not do that. It's actually quite amazing what they pulled out of the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast does not have like a very superior CPU or anything. So like for them to get that level of fidelity and simulation and everything together, that way is actually quite amazing. Like the PS2 is a much more powerful CPU than the Dreamcast. So yeah, on like every level, like Namco totally just hit it out of the park. It's amazing, I guess, just to see it, again and be like, yeah, it still looks really good. Like I'm still amazed by what it can do.
yeah. Shane's apparently dealing with something at the moment.
Oh no. I said I'll be right back, because as soon as he was like, yeah, the thighs jiggle too and everything, I was like, I need to go investigate. I'll be right back.
I need to see this, right?
Oh, I thought you're okay.
You can see it in like the character viewer thing.
Okay, you were investigating more edging.
Yeah, it's just taking care of that soul edge.
You need to push to the edge of soul.
Yeah. The edging will never die.
That's right.
I mean, but in all seriousness, though, I do agree that, like, I mean, to sort of illustrate the point further that we've been talking about with the graphics here, like when I fired it up, because full disclosure, I played this on an emulator. I had to double check that I didn't have some sort of like graphics scaling option on or something, because I was like, I feel like this looks too good. This looks too good. But no, that's just how the game looks. And that
is how it looks.
Yeah, not saying it for, you know, the whole kit and caboodle, but I will absolutely say that the graphics 100% hold up extremely well today.
It looked better than PC games at the time.
Oh, way better. Yeah.
It's insane. And one last thing I just want to say before I move on, because I mean, I think like we're saying it's awesome in multiple different ways at this point, but I just want to say I appreciate how colorful the game is. It's like the variance in the environments. It's not like all dark and gray, and we know we were about to get into that era, but I mean, this is a Sega console, and even though it's a Namco game, which is interesting. This is where I kind of forgot to get into the brief history. I think this is the first game Namco put on a Sega console since the Genesis, because they had a notorious rivalry for years. And if you kind of look at the releases, you see a tit for tat, like Daytona USA, Ridge Racer, Virtua Fighter, Tekken, Shinobi, Rolling Thunder. Like they were back and forth for ages. Yes. And so I think it got to a point that like they stopped. Yeah, ages. That's the right word. I'm talking about Sega. But so this is like kind of Namco's return to a Sega console. And it looks like it's so bright, it's so colorful that this fits right with the catalog of what you would expect from a Sega fighting game. This feels more, and I haven't played Virtua Fighter 3 in a very, very long time, but this feels more at home with Sega's catalog than a Virtua Fighter 3 does at the time. It felt more appropriate. Like this felt like the correct fighting game to get it launch over that one, if that makes sense. And that's just from like a visual stylistic point, like how colorful it is, how fun it is, everything like that. It's right up more that Sega feeling type of gameplay. It's like Namco just like perfected what Sega tried to do when they set out in the 3D fighting game scene.
Well, I certainly like it better than Virtua Fighter 3, but I think Virtua Fighter 3 represents what Sega was presenting also pretty well.
I'm not saying it didn't. And again, my memory is like horrible when it comes to Virtua Fighter 3. I'm just saying I think...
No, I know what you're saying. I'm really appreciative that Soulcalibur was colorful, because the era coming directly after it was the era of monochromatic stuff. But
well, Tekken was also kind of more darker and grittier.
Oh, that's true.
So I appreciate that. Anyone else want to talk about anything with graphics? Because I do feel we've kind of beaten it to the ground, but I don't want to leave any corner unchecked.
I guess I was just going to say that Ivy's weapon was quite a flex by Namco, like creating a weapon that could like wrap around people and like go limp, and then and then suddenly animate it into shapes and like extend and retract, and like it was bananas. Like when I saw it, I was like, "What? How did they do this?"
Shane, is that a description of your experience with Ivy?
No, the exact opposite actually. I don't believe the word limp entered the conversation at any point.
There's no limp.
We're adults. All right, let's move on to the musical or sound presentation here. Kiyoshi, I'll start with you again. What do you think of this game's audio design?
I like the theming a lot. I think it goes with the gameplay. I think it sounds a little bit compressed though. Like I don't know if you guys noticed that. Like I feel like the samples feel kind of compressed or something. Like it's
voices. I think a little
voices.
bit.
Yeah, a bit. I think the compositions and stuff are good. I would say though that I thought that there's a mode in Soul Edge called the Con Super Session. You can switch the soundtrack to, and I thought that stood out more, and you can like recognize themes better in Soul Edge than in Soulcalibur. And of course, it had that amazing opening song, which Soulcalibur doesn't have.
Yeah.
I do think that Soulcalibur's audio design is very good. I don't have any complaints at all. And I think some of the themes are quite good. I like Mitsurugi's theme and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I wouldn't say it's like the best, but it's also not bad at all. There's nothing wrong with it.
Shane?
I kind of feel like for the most part, I'm going to tend to agree. I also did notice, and I didn't think it was relegated to just the voice samples either, but I did think that the sound, like the OST overall, sounded like noticeably compressed. But outside of that, I mean, I liked the thematic tracks, like everybody's like, specific character themes. I thought they fit them pretty well. Not too much more to say about it, really. It's one of those deals where I feel like it does what it's supposed to do, right? And at the end of the day, that's like, you probably have a lot less to talk about there. Because if it was absolute hot trash, I'd have a whole lot of things to say. And if it was fantastic, I'd be spending way more time on it, like I did with Shovel Knight, for example. But here, it's,
Right.
yeah, I mean, it's good.
Yeah, I'll stay off the compression stuff because I can't tell. I'm not going to say whether or not they are. I can say that you can definitely tell. So in the announcer's voice, that sounds super compressed. I don't think it sounds all that good, even though it sounds cool. It's just, you can tell the audio quality bit rate's probably a little bit lower than it needs to be. The thing that stands out most to me with the audio design in Soulcalibur, all the just basic sounds, like as we've said before in the past, if we don't have much to say about it, it probably means it's pretty good. I think the voice acting is decent, even though like it's all in Japanese, and which was a choice, which I'm not saying is bad. I probably prefer it to be all Japanese, to be honest with you.
I definitely would, especially when you hear them saying their moves or something like that.
Yeah, 100% agree. I couldn't watch Fist of the North Star and they say all those things, and I agree here too.
If you played later Soulcaliburs, they actually do have voice in English for a lot of that stuff. And it sounds a little weird when they say they're, I don't know, like suffer, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
I don't know, stuff like that.
I prefer not to understand and think it sounds cool.
It's just a little better.
A little bit. But what I'll say about the music is it's not typical fighting game music. And I think that's just something Namco did really well anyway, even with Tekken just being more techno. If you compare it to like the Capcom fighters, which are much more much more catchy melodies. And what I find with Soulcalibur is that these themes could almost be like JRPG boss themes.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, as opposed to like a fighting game theme, which I like. It's it's more sweeping. It's more orchestrated. I think they stand a little bit better than your traditional fighting game on their own. And I think it makes it unique enough. And it's not intrusive either. Like, it just fits.
Oh, no, it doesn't get in the way at all. No.
Like, Mitsurugi's theme is really good. Kalik's theme is really good. But a lot of them are just, I think Money Pit, which is Voldo's theme, is very good for most of it. But for the rest of it, is like really appropriate background tunes that you probably would enjoy more listening separate from the game. But in the game themselves, they don't take center stage like they do in a Street Fighter. And that's not, I'm not saying that's bad with Street Fighter, because I think the music in the Street Fighter games are phenomenal, with the exception of like Alpha 3 and Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Not going to talk about those because they're great games. But in terms of like music, I think it strikes a really good balance. I think I agree with you, Kiyoshi. Not the best ever, but still very good and extremely appropriate.
Yes, I think it matches the era they were going for, the theming, the backgrounds, everything. Like, you have that music, it just complements everything. It's very good that way.
I agree. One little bit of miscellaneous information I want to throw in here before we move on to the patron pontifications for music and sound. Siegfried, as well as Nightmare and Yoshimitsu, was voiced by the same voice actor as Adult Link in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. And that voice actor is Nobuyuki Hiyama. And also, the voice actor for Young Link is in Soulcalibur, and that is Taki's voice actress, and that is Fujiko Takimoto. Could you imagine, like, you're a voice actor for the highest rated game of all time, and then the following year, you're a voice actor for the second highest rated game of all time, in completely different genres, just kind of randomly. I think both of them are actually pretty prolific voice actors, so the odds are probably better than like most voice actors. Like, I just found that like Siegfried is is Link. It's exactly Link.
And it's funny because then he's Link in Soulcalibur too.
Yeah, exactly. See, I never would have guessed though, because neither one of them said anything like yeah or skink or yeah. So I had no idea.
Siegfried does when he wins. He totally does. That's how I was clued into it. When I heard like, yeah, he's just showing a voice actor. I'm like, bullshit. So I like brought up all of Siegfried's lines and he's like, yeah. I'm like, oh.
That's Link.
Yeah. Yep. That is Link. I thought that was cool. You can't tell with Nightmare or Yoshimitsu though, but you can definitely tell with Siegfried. Anyway, that's just a little bit of tidbit of information.
I also have a tidbit.
Go ahead.
Did you notice that the Dreamcast ticks while it's playing the music?
No.
Like if you just listen to the system itself, it makes this like tick, 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 tick noise.
No, I haven't noticed.
I think it's like trying to buffer two things at the same time or something. Like, I don't know what the game is doing, but I was afraid that it was going to break my console when I first got the game. But yeah, the system audibly like ticks while it's playing back. And like, I haven't heard another game do that. It's really bizarre.
The system itself?
The system itself, yeah. It's not in the soundtrack.
Oh, wow.
It's the system itself.
I didn't notice.
It's like the laser shuttle is ticking. It's like tick, 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 tick.
Oh, that's probably why I don't notice, because I'm not using a disc.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I would say out of the three of us, you are the only one that played this.
I'm the only one who apparently heard this.
Well, I mean, did you play this on your Dreamcast or did you play it on your Mister?
Oh, there's no Dreamcast core on Mister, so I played it on my Dreamcast.
Oh yeah, there's no core yet. I can't keep up with Mister. I need to look into that though.
It goes up to the Nintendo 64, and that's where it stops.
Okay. Yeah, there would be no way for me to test that for now, unless I put the optical drive back in.
Well, there goes my little Easter egg observation.
So if you own a Dreamcast and Soulcalibur, let us know if you hear a tick. Did it at least go to the beat?
No, it's just it's a consistent tick when it's playing music.
Oh, one more tidbit, which is not music. Did you pay attention to your VMUs? It's not super important. It's just cute. All of the characters have their own little chibi models.
That's right.
Yeah, they'll attack when you press the attack button. Van Fernal said that last week, and I saw it this week, and I thought it was cute.
I've been using my, it's like a, I don't know, it's a multi-select VMU. It doesn't have a screen on it, so I've been using that so long I forgot about that.
I thought it was just super cute. Not that I ever paid attention to it. I only saw it when I put my initials in at the very end. I'm like, oh, that's cute. There's Chibi Lizard Man.
It is cool. I like what they did with the VMUs. It was really good.
I agree. Shane, I know you hate the VMU, right?
Why am I the villain? No, I mean, listen, I as I recall from our Dreamcast episode, I said that it seemed a little strange to make a lot of design decisions around one little gimmicky thing that's basically a Tamagotchi lodged inside of your controller. But I did not say that I hated it. You know, I enjoyed it for what it was worth. Like when I was playing Skies of Arcadia, it's a nice little addition. Probably mostly unnecessary, but you know, it's there.
Yeah, it's cute. All right. It's time to move into our patron pontifications, where our patrons write in on our Discord channel and let us know what they think of the game that we will be talking about. And if you want to do that, just go over to our Patreon, which you can find in our link tree, linktr.ee/retrohangover. You can join for as little as $1 a month, and then just come over to our Discord, and you'll find the patron exclusive channels where you can provide your input over there. And we will be starting out with our Patreon pontifications with Soha, which has multiple channels on Twitch and YouTube, which is like Soha Y0. And Soha says, I never played the first Soulcalibur, but I really like the narrator. This man can speak nonsense into my ear nonstop, and I would love it very much. But hey, I enjoy the other games, so I'm sure it's a solid foundation. Also boobs. Thank you, Soha. I agree. Boobs are good. Taki and Ivy, which are characters that I'm sure a lot of young boys tried to play with first, right, Shane?
Yep. I can only surmise.
Yep.
All right. Moving right along. We have Alt next up, and Alt says, is this the one that features Jedi fighting, Assassin's Creed fighting Link, unless you own the PS2, which only had Heihachi, or the Xbox who got Spawn? Maybe I'm misremembering and it was 2B versus Vader after all. 2B, I Am Your Father is probably a not safe for work VOD somewhere on the web. But like, real talk, I never played Soulcalibur 1. Nobody really talked about it around me until the guest characters in 2, and most notably because of Link. I'm in that same boat, where I tried Soulcalibur 2, and it was fun, but without an online component or friends who like fighting games, this was something I never really experienced. Thank you, Alt.
The Emperor says, first time I played Soulcalibur was on the Dreamcast. I was thoroughly impressed. This statement strengthens the soul of the Emperor.
That is a line that is said when you win. I love it. All right, next is Dischimera from the YouTube channel Game Over Hell. And Dischimera says, transcending history and the world, a tale of souls and swords eternally retold, is a lie because they only retold it 5 times and the series died. Why, Namco? Why? Yeah, that's from Soulcalibur 2, but I never played or seen much of 1.
This theme seems to be repeated quite a bit so far.
Yeah.
Remember I told you you're going to be a bit disappointed.
Everybody's like, this one's got Zelda in it.
Also, I don't know why people are saying the series is dead. I've never heard that it's actually dead, but
Harada came out and pretty much said that.
Did he really? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back through his Twitter or something.
All right. Next, we have Lunchbox, aka the Disgruntled Gamer, also known as Thunderdome Gaming Society on YouTube, who says, I missed the patron pontification of the Dreamcast launch. I was there day one, and this was one of the launch games I bought. I enjoyed the quirky fighting games back then, and this one just clicked with me, especially the characters you can choose from. This wasn't Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, or Killer Instinct, and that is what I wanted. A totally new experience with different characters. Sadly, the charm doesn't last long, but it was a fun time. Just wait until Soulcalibur 2 launches and each platform had a different guest character, which was fucking awesome. Oh, and Spawn as a fighter on the Xbox is the best. It's not a contest. GameCube received Linked, which is like kind of cool. Wait, no, Link's a little bitch. Heihachi from Tekken appeared on the PS2 version. Now that's cool, but Spawn is the best. Also, we need a new modern Spawn game. For the love of God, make it happen, Todd.
I don't disagree, but it probably would be bad. Then I'd not agree.
I mean, it's probably coming sooner than we think because I think there's a reboot of a Spawn movie coming soon.
Oh, no.
I think Link is the best side character, but
is his last name German too?
Siegfried. Anyway, Mike the Ref says, Soulcalibur has to be one of the most underrated series in fighting game history. I agree. The combat was different than most fighting games at the time, incorporating weapons as an essential part of your character. Mortal Kombat had weapons at the time, but they had to be used via special moves. The funny opportunities to get ring outs was always frustrated me, as I was always the guy with a full health bar standing in the wrong place. One shot and I'm hitting the continue button. The graphics were great at the time, and I loved the music in the game. Future versions of the series always fascinated me, with the variety of guest characters based on the console it was released on. All in all, Soulcalibur deserves a lot more love than it gets, and hopefully we can get a new release in the series soon. Well, I don't know about soon, but hopefully at some point.
By the way, Mike the Ref is from the YouTube channel Backbreaker Gaming and also has a Twitch channel, which I hang out every Wednesday. Watch wrestling. So if you want to hang out and watch wrestling with us, yeah, come on over. All right, next is Keith Gasper, who is still the only host ever of the Main Quest podcast. And Keith says, never played Soulcalibur. I did play the second one. And I was pretty good. I think it had Zelda in it. Thanks, Keith.
That's a theme here. All right. And last but certainly not least, we have JC, who says, good old Soulcalibur. Although Soul Blade, Soul Edge in its native Japan, was the first title in the series and a tremendous way to get going, Soulcalibur was when the franchise really exploded into the scene and laid the foundations for many other games to come. The Dreamcast port also managed to be better than the arcade original and became a shining example of what the system could do. There is so much to love in this game. The presentation is incredible and still looks quite decent today. The sound design is superb, and the soundtrack fits the title perfectly. But above all else, the gameplay really shines through here. It's incredibly easy to pick up and play, and newcomers to the game will enjoy it, while veterans will find plenty to sink their teeth in. Can't believe this long-ass pontification was read in its full extent. That's what we do. That's what we do. You write it and we read it. We're like we're Anchorman up here. I am
whale's vagina.
Ron Burgundy.
Write something nice about Ivy next time, and I'm sure we'll read it.
Yeah.
That's the challenge. I'll position it so Shane has to. So now we're going to talk about whether or not this game, in our opinion, holds up today. As is tradition, myself and Shane will go first before handing it off to our guest for the final word. Shane, so do you think this game holds up today?
You know, Chris, I do. I do think it holds up today. I know. It's shocking. I feel like overall I was a lot less negative about this game than I think any of us, including myself, thought that I would be going into it. It's still not my cup of tea. Like I'm gonna be honest with you, I maybe put a couple hours into this at most, and that was largely just trying to unlock stuff in the mission mode. But I feel like that's fine, you know. And honestly, that's more time than you'd get out of me from a lot of other fighting games. So it certainly held my attention for more time than I think most would. And there's a lot here. Like if you like fighting games, or if you have even a passing interest, you're going to have a good time with this. I think one of the pontifications put it really well too, that there's a pretty good balance between accessibility, but also depth that is really hard to strike. And I think this game does it fairly well, where, you know, you can just kind of pick it up and be like, okay at it. I mean, apparently I should have played as Maxi, but that's fine. But outside of that, you know, you also do have a pretty in-depth move list to work your way through, and some pretty technical things that you can learn to pull off if you really do want to get proficient at it. And as we've said, the game still looks incredible for a Dreamcast launch title, which is insane. So yeah, I mean, I absolutely think it is still worthwhile today for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you could tell anything about this episode and the fact I celebrated when Shane said yes, no shit, this game holds up today. I really think this is one of the best games ever, best fighting games ever created. I think that its accessibility to new players is through the roof, and how it could reward more experienced players that put the time into it, as Shane already said, and patrons have said, and we said throughout this episode, that's a really difficult thing to do, especially within a more traditional fighting format. This is a game that's going to be fun for almost anyone who picks it up. At least you're going to find something fun in it if you want to, if you can get into just fighting games, generally speaking. And it's kind of shocking, like looking at all these pontifications saying that, and a lot of people I've seen recently, just like, I don't remember the first one, but like I played the second one, and just going into my mind of the Wayback Machine, I like the reason I remember the second one being so hype and everyone being excited for it was because of just how well renowned this game was and how deeply appreciated this game was in the gaming community, that when it finally got an entry outside of the confines of the Dreamcast, that was an explosion of hype, especially because it did contain, you know, additional characters on each version. But that was a testament. Like, people were like, oh, we're finally getting a Soulcalibur, and we're able to play as Link or Spawn. No one cared about playing as Heihachi because they already had. But if we're being honest, like that's what it was. Is like, we're finally getting a taste of the game that we didn't play because it was locked away on the Dreamcast. And when I was playing this game, like, this has been kind of a weird year for me in terms of gaming in general, where like a lot of the games I have played just haven't done it for me. I just haven't felt a lot of enjoyment or a lot of joy out of it. I'm feeling kind of numb. To my excuse on that, I haven't really played a lot of games that are considered to be phenomenal in terms of what I've been playing this year. But it's like, I just got into a groove and I hit a gear where it's just every single time. And I'm just playing this on easy, very casual with every single character and going to the mission mode and unlocking things. And I'm just like, I am having an unbelievably great time with this. And it was a feeling that I haven't had in a very long time. over the past year when it comes to gaming. And so the amount of joy this gave me, and I don't think I have played it in like the past 23, 24 years, to just sit back down and just look at this game probably with a lot more of a fresh set of eyes and just a renewed experience, and just still holding up as much as it did today as it did back then. This game is phenomenal. It deserves all the credit it has gotten. I see why it's a 98 on Metacritic. I see why it's the second highest rated game of all time. It's a game that I think can be appreciated by a large breadth of people as long as you're willing to give it the chance. So yeah, 100% absolutely this game holds up. Kiyoshi.
Okay. Well, I might say something slightly controversial and say that I'm very picky when it comes to fighting games. And I find fault in games that are world renowned, like Street Fighter 2. Like I don't prefer to play certain games because like, oh, it's not quite what I wanted. It's not quite what I wanted. Like I love Vampire Savior, but you can block in the air and do these weird shenanigans. Or Street Fighter 2, you can get kind of like stun locked because, the hit stun and stuff like that. Or like not when you get hit, but when you block, right? So you have these long block animations, or like, oh, and Alpha has these custom combos. I would love the game if it didn't have custom combos or something. Like there's all these little things that sometimes like kind of bug me about a fighting game. Soulcalibur is the only fighting game I've ever played where I have no complaints. Like none, not at all. Like on top of that, it's just awesome in general. Like like we've been saying this whole episode. That's why it's my favorite fighting game of all time, because I can go back to this game and have just an amazing time, just like you said. And I have no complaints and I have no gripes and there's nothing that nags me in the back of my mind about the game system or anything like that. It just does exactly what I want. And, I have just a blast playing the game. And does it hold up? Of course it does. It's my favorite fighting game. It's a 98. Absolutely.
So there you have it. This gets universal approval from the RHP hosts and their guests. It's been a while. I think we've been that strong in approval. So I'm happy to hear that. This one makes me happy. And for everyone out there, all of our patrons and listeners to this show who have not heard of it, but played Soulcalibur 2, do yourself a favor and at least go back and check it out. Go give it a look. I think you'll appreciate it. Put it on easy, play as Maxi, get into the groove. Hopefully it'll put a smile on your face. I think it will. But that brings us to the end of the episode. And Kiyoshi, thank you so much for joining us again. Deeply do appreciate it.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I heard it was your favorite fighting game and needed to have you on originally. And I'm just going to say this, and I even told Kiyoshi this before this, so it's not like your replacement.
Go ahead.
But initially it's supposed to be Raging Demon. We just couldn't get him on the show. Didn't match up. So Raging Demon, if you're listening to this, thank you so much for at least volunteering to be on. And sorry we couldn't make it work, but hopefully we'll get you on in the future. But again, thank you, Kiyoshi, for talking about your favorite fighting game, because I think it made for a great conversation, and I had a great time.
Me too. Yeah, it was absolutely great.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
I thought you were going to say that you brought him on because when you heard it was his favorite fighting game, just to balance me out. But little did you know.
Uh-huh. No, I had faith. I had faith that the game's quality would shine through.
Oh, okay. All right.
And it did.
It did. That's true. It did.
Woohoo. All right. So before we close this out officially, we're going to let you plug whatever you want to plug here, and let the world know where they can find your stuff or anything you want to direct people to. So Kiyoshi, let people know what you want people to look for on the internet.
Well, I'm still working on a game called Strike Blazinger, and we don't have that much to go around that's new content right now, but there's strikeblazinger.com, and there's also our old name, Strike Harbinger, on X, Twitter, if you want to check that
Shitter.
out. Yes. We don't really, like I said, we don't really have any updates right now. We're actually working on the back end of the game, so it's been kind of quiet for a while, but yeah, I'm working on an indie game. It's a Space Harrier-like, if that's your jam. Check out, look it up on YouTube. We have some clips from friends of ours. And it's actually under the name Strike Harbinger for a lot of those clips, just because we had to change the name. There was a conflict. So please go check that out if you like. And thanks again. And I'll talk to you guys later.
Absolutely. See you in the Discord.
Yeah, see you in the Discord.
Wow, you know what? That's
right.
a fantastic segue, if ever there was one. Speaking of the Discord, that is one of the many things that you can find if you would like to dive a bit deeper into the RHP lore, if you will. And we make it easy for you to find. So if whether it's your first time here or if you're a returning customer, we're just glad to have you. And if you haven't already done so, please head over to our link tree. It's linktr.ee/retrohangover. And therein you may find such things as this here main show feed. You could also find our Patreon if you would like to support the show in that way. And if you do, you also get access to a whole bunch of extra bonus content, which as of the time of this recording is now very nicely and neatly categorized for you to peruse. So you're welcome. And there's also the merch store. If you want to pick up a sweet shirt, I highly recommend it. I think between Chris and I, we probably own at least 10 or 12 of them now. I don't know. But yeah, so definitely check that out. And, we got that Discord that we mentioned earlier, which is public and free. So you're really doing yourself a disservice by not joining. Like you may actually be losing money by not doing it. I can't verify that.
I agree.
But it sounds right to me. So I'm going to go with it. So you should check out the Discord, get in there, get in on the discussions, the monthly video game contests that we have, the review crew. There's a lot going on. So you're missing out if you're not there. And we also have our Twitch and YouTube channels, which are now a little bit more in sync with each other than they ever have been, because the glories of free technology, because we run a lean business here, if there ever was one. So if it's free, man, we're all about it. And we are restreaming to both. And Chris, when do we do that? When can the people find us playing the video games?
Well, you can head over to now YouTube and Twitch over at, just subscribe to our sites there. I was going to say twitch.tv/retrohangover, but we're also at YouTube now as well. And you can find us there at 9 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday nights. And we're going to be playing various games. And this is where I say something wildly inappropriate. So I am just going to ask everybody, have you been sent unsolicited nudes before? Or maybe solicited nudes, which they expected you to send a nude back? I'm not saying that you should send one back or that's appropriate, but like, hey, did you enjoy it? Sometimes they're cool. I don't know why I'm saying this. All I'm asking is, have you gotten some weird nudes? What's your weirdest weird nude story? And you know what? If it's depressing and stalky, that's probably not good. So probably don't share that one unless you want to. That could be interesting, but don't like. If it's traumatic, it could probably be pretty bad. So make them funny. Funny nude received stories about nudes. This is bad.
This has started to become a theme now that I've got to somehow save the end of every one of our episodes from your debauchery. I'm not sure how to do that.
I want out, guys. What is this?
So Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern time, tell us about your nudes.
Good Lord. All right. Well, unless we get sued, until next time.
Play with your The Legend Will Never Die joysticks.
Shane here with a quick message. You know, the one rule Chris and I have always gone by regarding advertisements is this. It has to be something we use and can personally vouch for. If you know me, you know I love coffee. And Bones Coffee Company has been my go-to for home brewing for quite some time now. Their small batch beans come in an impressive variety of flavors like Mint Invaders from Chocolate Space, or Electric Unicorn, which I swear tastes exactly like Fruity Pebbles. And the best part? No added sugar or calories involved, just natural flavors infused right into the beans themselves. Build your own sample pack of 5 4-ounce bags to find out which flavors speak to you, or jump in headfirst with full 12-ounce bags. They've even got K-Cups. Step up your homebrew game with Bones Coffee by visiting bit.ly/RHPBones. That's bit.ly/RHPBONES.